what this is all about, is your right to freedom of speech.
What made America great is an independent, vigorous press.
If a jerk burns a flag, America is not threatened.
Political speech is the heart of the First Amendment.
For expressing their religious beliefs.
Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children.
Welcome to Speaking Freely, a weekly conversation about free expression, the arts, and America. I'm Ken Paulson, here today with a special edition in partnership with the Nashville Songwriters Association International. We're here celebrating the passion and poetry of songwriting as part of the annual Tin Pan South Festival. This is going to be an extraordinary show. These are folks who made enormous contributions to songwriting for many years, and it's a pleasure to introduce to my right a man whose influence has been felt literally by generations. If you love the Beatles, you have to know that there would be no Beatles without the Crickets. And if you love the Crickets, you know that a big part of that style, that approach, that legacy comes from our special guest today, Mr. Sonny Curtis. Our next guest is a widely respected writer and performer who has won a Grammy Award and been nominated for 4 others, from her very first album in 1978 to the Dust Bowl Symphony with the London Symphony Orchestra. She's proven to be both a remarkable writer and a very thoughtful interpreter of other people's songs. Please welcome Nanci Griffith. Our third guest is also a Grammy Award winner for co-writing with John Vesner the Kathy Mattea hit, Where Have You Been? People have a hard time pigeonholing this guy. I've seen every possible description of his music. One of my favorites was shortly after his first album was put out, they described him as a 90s Randy Newman, which doesn't do you a lot of good today, does it, Don?
No.
So, and Randy wouldn't go away was the problem. That was, he is a joy to watch in performance, especially at the Bluebird Cafe. He's a funny, thoughtful, and sometimes frantic performer, Mr. Don Henry. It seems appropriate today to begin at the beginning. It's not a stretch to say that this man helped invent rock and roll. And today, a lot of Americans seem to have lost sight of what songs really can mean in people's lives. It's not just product. It's not just chart position. And sometimes music could be downright frightening. And Sonny came along with Buddy Holly at a time when a lot of people were afraid of rock and roll. Can you remember those days, the kind of reaction you got as a rock and roll band in Lubbock?
Oh yeah, I remember it very well. For one thing, my folks thought I was speeding like a bullet toward the gates of hell, which helped me a lot when I had my own daughter years later. But to remember how they felt. Yeah, we were rebellious, you know. Like, and of course, I was a little too young to grow sideburns at the time. But I remember one night we played for a skating rink, you know, rock and roll dance at the skating rink, and they were doing the Dirty Bop. I don't know if anybody here remembers the Dirty Bop or not, but it's pretty tame compared to what people do today. But the Lubbock Avalanche Journal sent a team of photographers out, and they took our picture. And you remember Confidential magazine where they used to put a black spot over there, you know, ink your eyes out? Our pictures made the paper the next day, you know, like they're down at the skating rink doing the Dirty Bop, and they had our pictures with the eyes blacked out, and that's one memory I have.
So when you're this renegade rock and roller, it started out really with you becoming friends with Buddy Holly, and you had a band called the Three Tunes.
Well, we first had a country band, and I played fiddle in that band, and we just did all the contemporary country hits. And then Elvis came through town, and that turned everybody's head around. One thing about it, I think it was he attracted so many girls, you know, like that's what one of the main things that turned us around. But his music felt so good, and I might say we never got the girls, but we did start playing rock and roll music. And we started the next day after Elvis left town. We bought his records and learned his songs and started booking out doing Elvis songs.
And did you write from the beginning?
Did I write?
Yeah.
Yeah, I never heard from anything for a good while, but I started writing right away.
Because it was at a time when a lot of singers just covered other people's material.
Yeah.
But you had the idea, you had a sense you could write as well.
Well, yeah, my first record actually was a country hit with Webb Pierce, a song called Sunday. It was on the back of a song called Honky Tonk Song. Mel Tillis wrote Honky Tonk Song. That was a bigger hit, but mine hit as well. It didn't hit quite as big, but then right after that I wrote Rock Around with Ollie B, which was a Holly song that we recorded as the three tunes down here in Nashville.
Really, the legacy of Buddy Holly has grown, and probably bigger today in terms of record sales and at any time and awareness. It kind of peaked, it actually ignited again, really, with the release of the movie The Buddy Holly Story, which I understand you're not a huge fan of.
Well, I thought it was a pretty good Hollywood rock and roll movie, but it didn't have a lot to do with the truth, you know. I mean, for one thing, there are no mountains in Lubbock, Texas. That's just for openers, and I could go on, but...
Well, you actually did set the record straight, and I wonder if we could hear your rendition of the real Buddy Holly Story.
Why, certainly, I'll have a go at it. The real Buddy Holly Story. Just came down to see the Buddy Holly story. I guess it don't matter none, but they told it wrong. So I'm gonna try to tell you what really happened, but it's gonna be tough to tell a story that long in a song. So I'll just try to relate a few of the high spots. There's so many low spots, I know you don't have the time. Remember they had a whole movie to tell their story, but all I got is a song, and my story's got to rhyme. So here we go. We had a good country band, and I played the fiddle. But he played the guitar, and he used to play the banjo, son. We harmonized like Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys. Bob wore my hat and played the flat top with his son. We played them joints and had a lot of fun with the women. We swigged on bootleg beer and played Lexington Sun. We got our picture in the paper with our eyes covered up. They said our music made the kids do sinful stuff. We were crazy back then, but we sure had lots of fun. But then Elvis came along and oh, but just loved him. But I couldn't tell where rock and roll was coming from. But I stuck around 'cause someone had to play like Scotty. Joe B played the bass and J.I. played the drum. But I grew up and had to go out and make a living. I picked a Slim Whitman tour and I wound up on the road. And them good old boys began to make some noise around Texas. And they got hot as a pistol, picking that rock and roll. But that'll be the day came much too soon for Buddy. He was a good old boy and he had a good Christian soul. He never knocked nobody down in his life. He loved us all and he treated us right. And you know the levee ain't dry and the music didn't die. 'Cause Buddy Holly lives every time we play rock and roll. Thank you very much.
The only person more excited about sitting this close to a real cricket than me is Nancy Griffith, I think. Nancy has shown a special fondness for the crickets, and you've toured together. And I understand the first time you actually saw a television involved Buddy Holly and the Crickets?
The first time my first recollection of television was my whole family getting together and going over to my grandparents' house to watch the Crickets on Ed Sullivan's show, and I would have been 4 years old when that happened. I was very influenced by the Crickets because they wrote their own songs, and that was so unusual. And I think one of my earliest dreams in childhood was to grow up and be a songwriter like Sonny Curtis or Buddy Holly or J.I. Allison, and then my second dream was to grow up and be a cricket.
And you've sort of accomplished that, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm the girl cricket.
That's great. The project you've been involved in over the 90s, the Other Voices projects, and this is an excellent companion volume to two terrific, I wanted to say records, but that dates me, CDs, that chronicle, to some extent, the greatest talents of folk music, the history of folk music. What was behind that project?
Well, it had come to a point when I first started making Other Voices, Other Rooms, where I felt like a lot of American music and Americana music was getting lost because radio was so formatted. And when I grew up, radio was an open ear to all kinds of music. And you might have in a given half-hour period of time hear Buddy Holly and the Crickets back-to-back with Nat King Cole, back-to-back with Frank Sinatra, and have a little jazz thrown in there. It was a different time, and so much music was getting lost, and you had writers like Townes Van Sant and Guy Clark, Don Henry, that were getting lost. Their music wasn't getting heard, and it's a very important part of American music that captures the social conscience of its time.
Now, you are not known for pulling your punches. You've written some very powerful songs. Do you ever say, I'm not going to play this song in front of this audience?
There have been times when I've been a bit frightened about playing particular songs to any given audience. And one song of mine, which my grandmothers both said was not the prettiest song I'd ever written, but the most important. Just a couple of weeks ago, I played at the Capitol for George W. Bush and Colin Powell and the Irish Prime Minister, Ahern, and Gerry Adams from Northern Ireland. And I questioned whether it would be appropriate for me to play this one song of mine. And at the end of the day, I played it, and everyone said, we're glad you went ahead and played that song. It was important that it be heard in this company.
Could we hear that now?
Yeah. It's a hard life wherever you go. I am a backseat driver from America. They drive to the left on Falls Road, and the man at the wheel's name is Seamus. We pass a child on the corner he knows, and Seamus says, "No, what chance is that kid got?" And I say from the back, "I don't know." He says, "There's barbed wire at all of these exits, and there ain't no place in Belfast where a child can go. 'Cause it's a hard life, it's a hard life, it's a very hard life. It's a hard life wherever you go. And if we poison our children with hatred, well then a hard life is all that they'll know. And there ain't no place in Belfast where a child can go." A cafeteria line into Chicago, and the fat man in front of me is calling black people trash to his children, and he's the only trash here I see. And I'm thinking this man wears a white coat in the night when his children should sleep, but they'd slip to their windows and they'd see him where a child can go alone. It's a hard life, and I was a child in the 60s when dreams could be held through TV. We had Disney and Cronkite and Martin Luther, and I believed. Now I am a backseat driver from America, and I am not at a wheel of control. And I've been guilty, I've been warned, I have been a root of all evil, Lord, and I refuse to drive on the left side of the road. 'Cause it's a hard life, it's a hard life, it's a very hard life. It's a hard life wherever you go. And if we poison our children with hatred, well then a hard life is all to tell, no. And there'll be no place on this earth where a child can go. Well, it made it a hard life wherever they go. Thank you.
Extraordinary song. Do you get mail?
I get a lot of mail, yeah.
But I mean, that's a kind of tough song you would think you get a lot of reaction to.
It's always gotten the most positive reactions.
That's great.
In the strangest places.
That's terrific. Wonderful song. I have to ask this gentleman here if he had a chance to do the same kind of album or CD containing other voices from perhaps your legacy, your history of rock and roll. Who would be on your album? There you go. First two cuts, they're right there.
Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you, it's a fact. My father, bless his heart, brought home Randy Newman's Good Old Boys when I was a kid. And it's funny because around the same time, I mean, not a month later, he brought home Guy Clark's Old Number One, which he said, I heard this guy on television too. And those changed my life. Up until then, you know, it had been strict diet of the Beatles and Elton John, with a whole lot of Joni Mitchell and Cat Stevens and that kind of singer-songwriter stuff thrown in too. But once I heard those two guys, Newman and Guy Clark, I just thought, well, that's really speaks to me more, and that's what I wanted to do. So I found out that Guy Clark was doing a lot of stuff in Nashville, and I said, well, that's where I'm going.
Right.
It was, late 70s, and if you had an acoustic guitar, Los Angeles and New York didn't really want to hear about that at the time, so it was Nashville for me right away.
You know, it's funny, Randy Newman's a great example of somebody who could make a point but be funny about it.
Yeah.
And you do that all the time. Yet you don't find a lot of funny writers in Nashville. You have touching, thoughtful, introspective, terrific writers, but you walk a different path. Has that been a little difficult for you?
Sometimes it's interesting because a lot of those songs have been recorded by people on one hand. On the other hand, it's gotten me, it's gotten me in trouble with publishers and stuff like that. But eventually they come around. I mean, I think the bottom line is that people want to be entertained. And I think, humor is definitely one way to do that. And of course, when you're writing songs like the songs that I grew up with, the country songs I grew up listening to and stuff, you want to try to temper it, make it more ironic than just funny.
Right.
And to me, that's what really makes these some of those great songs by Bobby Braddock or Randy Newman so wonderful because they're tempered with irony.
When you go to the Bluebird Cafe on any given night, there are those aforementioned writers. I was there the other night, and there were three terrific writers preceding Don. Each one made the audience cry. and then all eyes turned to Don to bring us out of this funk. I wonder if you could play the song you played that night.
All right.
It ain't his fault that she went AWOL, 'cause he tried everything from A to Z. Now it's J and B, M&M's and KFC, trying hard to make himself believe it ain't no BFD. He's got his CMT, no SEX, but that's okay. At least he ain't no SOB like that PhD who took his ex and ran off to LA. Bow, 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 bow. Bow, 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 bow. She liked CNN, made fun of his TNN, always called it E-I-E-I-O. Now their love is R.I.P. At least he's F-R-E-E. And he ain't crying on his P-I-L-L-O. It ain't no B-F-D. He's got his C-M-T, no S-E-X. But that's okay. At least he ain't no S-O-B like that PhD who took his ex and ran off to L.A. So one night he ordered pizza for some R&R with the NFL, when a delivery girl named Lisa stole his heart when she rang his bell. Now they're in L-U-V and it's XTC, no S-E-X yet, but that's A-OK, 'cause he feels like a VIP with all of her TLC, and ASAP she'll be his fiancée, and that's a BFD in a real good way. Bow, 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 bow. Bow, 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 bow. Thank you.
Sonny, you've written some extraordinary songs, one of which you wrote while a member of the Crickets, that was later covered by the Bobby Fuller Four. And I wonder if we could hear some of that.
I fought the law and the law won. Breaking rocks in the hot sun, I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law won. I needed money and I had none. I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law won. I left my baby and I feel so bad. I guess my race is run. She's the best thing that I've ever had. I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law won. Robbing people with a zip gun, I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law won. I left my baby in a good fun. I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law won. I left my baby and I feel so bad. I guess my race is run. But she's the best thing that I've ever had. I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law won.
Have any of you had first-hand experience with censorship, either by the record company or?
I have, and it's been recently, and it was in the oddest place for it to happen. And It was at the Kennedy Center, and I was playing there with the National Symphony. And I am involved with the Vietnam Veterans of America Foundation and a campaign for a landmine-free world, along with several other artists. I mean, the list is getting endless now of all of us who are involved in this campaign. And Bobby Muller, who is the founder of the Vietnam Veterans of America Foundation, sometimes comes and speaks. And because he is based out of Washington, D.C., we were going to have him come speak before intermission at this particular show about the campaign for a landmine-free world. And the Kennedy Center said, you can't do that. And it was my first time to really encounter something where I was not in control of my own show, because for me it's part of my, as much a part of my performance, to acknowledge all the work that Bobby Muller has done in winning the Nobel Peace Prize in 1997 for his work in clearing this earth of a menace in this weapon, and also rehabilitating victims worldwide through the Vietnam Veterans Foundation. So to me, that was quite an insult that Bobby couldn't come speak.
While we're talking about that, could you talk about your involvement and commitment with that? You didn't have an audience at the Kennedy Center, you have one now.
Well, I did talk about it from stage myself, and it's such a fulfilling experience, because there are a lot of natural disasters on this earth: hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, wars that you can't control, and we as the general public feel like there is nothing we can do to help or alleviate the pain. And clearing the earth of landmines and never manufacturing or distributing them again is as important to me as doing away with biological weapons. And it is something that we can all do something about, and we do see a day in the future where they won't exist and where they won't be in people's backyards. Because once you've held a child in your lap that has to sit still for a full day to be fitted for prosthesis, having stepped on a landmine in their own backyard playing ball or gathering firewood, then the controversy over banning them ceases to exist. And last January I went to Vietnam and Cambodia to visit the medical facilities that the Vietnam Veterans of America Foundation have set up there to rehabilitate landmine victims, and it was just an incredible experience for me. Sheryl Crow and I went together, and many artists have gone. Mary Chapin Carpenter just recently went. Emmylou Harris has gone. Steve Earle. It's just an amazing experience, and what the VVAF is doing worldwide in countries like Kosovo and Sarajevo and Chechnya, Angola, all of these places that are so plagued by this tiny little weapon that we manufacture. It's really important work for me.
David Crosby has a new book and a documentary on that impulse of songwriters and musicians to help. And I'd just like to ask all three of you what it is about your business that you really truly don't see armies of shoe salesmen marching on Washington. There is something about being a musician that I think has attached to it a sense of social responsibility. What's your take on that?
Wow. I don't know how that comes about, maybe because we get an opportunity to be in front of a lot of people a lot of the time. And whether they want to hear it or not, sometimes we tend to get on a soapbox of what we believe. Maybe your average shoe salesman doesn't get a chance to do that kind of stuff. And that's an opportunity for us, and we have to be responsible with it, and make sure that we can raise some awareness. I would just like to see people do what Nancy's done, people like Britney Spears, and very young people who reach large audiences do that same kind of deal. I think it would open up a whole new generation to, the legacy that people like Martin Luther King started.
Yeah, to head off any hate mail from shoe salesmen, I'm confident they have a political conscience and get involved
Of course.
individually.
They just don't have the platform.
They don't have the platform, that's right. It's
not
one pair of shoes at a time.
shoes.
Have you ever campaigned for anybody?
No, I didn't get to do any direct campaigning. I did some local stuff for some people. Shannon Wood here in town. I did some stuff for her, and I got to play the inauguration for Bill Clinton a few years ago. So you know, that was the closest I got to do. And it was mainly because of a song I wrote about Martin Luther King called Beautiful Fool that they had me to come out and play that. So, you know, whenever it's right, I'll get out there.
Could we hear Beautiful Fool?
Sure.
Martin Luther, who did you think that you were? Appointed by some higher up, merely mortal, your plans were unaffordable. No one wants to pay for love. Oh, you beautiful fool, swimming upstream, kicking up waves. Dreams weren't meant to come true. That's why they call them dreams. Oh, you beautiful fool. Walter Cronkite preempted Disney one night, and all us kids was so upset. We thought that you were a trouble instigator, marching through our TV sets. Oh, you beautiful fool, swimming upstream, kicking up waves. Dreams weren't meant to come true. That's why they call them dreams. Oh, you beautiful fool. To fight a fight without a fist, all human instinct puzzles this. How dare you threaten our existence? Mahatma Gandhi, Jesus Christ, history repeats itself so nice. Consistently, we are resistant to love. I saw you on the black and white with blacks and whites applauding you. I saw you on another time without a sign of life in you. Oh, you beautiful fool, swimming upstream, kicking up waves. Dreams weren't meant to come true. That's why they call them dreams. Oh, you beautiful fool. Oh, you beautiful fool.
I think there are people who write songs for a living, and I know a good number of them here for whom it's an 8 to 5 kind of job, and their goal is sort of to get recorded and to make money and live the American dream. And you write some really powerful music, and I'm curious, after the number of years you've written and the number of songs you've written, can you still write a song that touches your own heart?
Very definitely. If I have an example
I'd love to hear that.
of a new song, in my trip to Vietnam, landing at Tan Son Nhut Airport in Saigon, which is now called Ho Chi Minh City, I had this overwhelming heart thing going on in my chest because my ex-husband, who is still a very, very dear friend, Eric Taylor, who's a marvelous songwriter, writes songs for Lyle Lovett and myself and lots of other writers, was a Vietnam veteran. And it had taken him about 20 years after he came home from Vietnam to get his life back together. And I hadn't expected to be that moved landing in Vietnam, but there I was, a bit overwhelmed with this feeling that I was being blessed with the opportunity to retrace the steps of a loved one in the loss of their innocence. And I stayed up all night that night and wrote this song. And it's not just for Eric Taylor, but for all our veterans. And it's overdue, but it's my way of saying thank you for serving your country.
Nothing that I've ever seen now means much of anything, and traveling through this part of you and the Vietnam that I had dreamed, the place you wore your life fatigued. I'm traveling through this part of you. I'll make my way now on my own, back to my home to live alone, having traveled through this part of you. And I will save this time and place for a time when I can say I've traveled truth in this part of you. Of Saigon, where were you in 1969 when I was but a youth? Oh, here were you were traveling through this part of you, and you were an American boy whose innocence was lost here in this war. And I'll wear your scars while traveling through this part of you. And nothing that I've ever seen now means much of anything in traveling through this part of you. And the Vietnam that I had dreamed, the place you wore your life fatigued. I'm traveling through this part of you, and I'm traveling through this part of you. I am traveling through this part of you.
Sonny, are you able to write from that personal perspective?
Yeah, every song I think you write is very personal, and you know, to go back to a question you asked Nancy, I think that if it doesn't touch your own heart, there's no reason to write it, man. So every song I write touches my heart a little bit. So.
I'm sure there are times you wrote a song and you said this is going to be a hit, and it may or may not have happened.
There's more than I care to remember.
And yet there's one song you've written that probably most folks in the television audience, the studio audience, aren't aware that you're the author. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what brought you into a television producer's office one day and with an invitation to write a song.
Well, a friend of mine called and said, "Hey, they're going to do a situation comedy with this lady, and would you be interested in writing the theme song?" About 2 minutes. I said, "Sure. I don't see why not." No, I jumped at the chance, and he dropped off a little 4-page format at lunch, and I looked over it, and within 2 hours I called and said, "Where do I go sing this?" You know, and he sent me to the guy's office, and I sung it to the guy, and it all sort of happened in one day and was wrapped up, the whole thing.
Let's share this.
Okay, and feel free, Nancy, if you'd like to.
It is the American Women's National Anthem.
Who can turn the world on with her smile? Who can take a nothing day and suddenly make it all seem worthwhile? Well, it's you, girl, and you should know it. With each glance and every little movement you show it. Love is all around, no need to waste it. You can have the town, why don't you take it? You're gonna make it after all. You are most likely to succeed. You have the looks and charms, and girl, you know that's all you need. All the men around adore you. That sexy look will do wonders for you. Love is all around, no need to waste it. You can have the town, why don't you take it? You're gonna make it after all. Love is all around, why don't you take it all? You're gonna make it after all. Claire had all but given up when she and Edwin fell in love. She touched his face and shook her head in disbelief. She sighed and said, "In many dreams I've held you near, but now at last you're really here. Where have you been? I've looked for you forever and a day. Where have you been? No, I'm just not myself when you're away." He asked her for her hand for life, and she became a salesman's wife. He was home each night by 8, but one stormy evening he was late, and her frightened tears fell to the floor until his key turned in the door. Where have you been? I've looked for you forever and a day. myself when you're away. They'd never spend a night apart. For 60 years she heard him snore. Now they're in a hospital, separate beds on different floors. Claire soon lost her memory and forgot the names of family. She never spoke a word again. Then one day they wheeled him in, and he held her hand and stroked her head. And in a fragile voice she said, "Where have you been? I've looked for you forever and a day. Where have you been? No, I'm just not myself when you're away. No, I'm just not myself when you're away."
That gets you, doesn't it?
We only have a few minutes left, but this covering goes both ways. People have covered your songs, and in the case of Julie Gold, you took one of her songs and made it an international hit, and then it was later another hit for Bette Midler.
5 years later, for a hit in America for Bette.
How did you find this song?
Julie Gold, the writer of this song, is a dear friend of mine, and we were all part of Songwriters Co-op up in New York. And she had written this beautiful song and sent it around to incredible voices and singers, and nobody wanted it. And she sent it to me, and I heard it and walked it over to Tony Brown's office, and both of us fell in love with it immediately. And since then, it's become a world anthem, and just goes to show that sometimes the music industry can be a bit myopic.
Can we hear that?
Sure, I'll give it a try.
I've sung this in five different languages now, so De lejos de loin aus de ferne, from a distance. Well, from a distance, the world looks blue and green, and the snow-capped mountains white. And from a distance, the ocean meets the stream, and the eagle takes to fly. And from a distance, there is harmony, and it echoes through the land. And it's the voice of hope, it's the voice of love, and it's the voice of every man. And from a distance, we all have enough, and no one is in need. And there are no guns, no bombs, no diseases, no hungry mouths to feed. And from a distance, we are distance. And from a distance, you look like my friend, even though we are at war. And from a distance, I can't comprehend what all these wars are for. From a distance, there is harmony, and it echoes through the land. And it's the hope of hope, it's the love of love, el corazón del hombre mundial. And you are the hope of hope, you are the love of loves. And this is a song of every woman, man, and child. And God is watching us, el Señor mira. Gott wat über uns from a distance. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. It's been a wonderful concert and conversation.
Thank you, Ken.
It's been a pleasure. Our guests have been Sonny Curtis, Nancy Griffith, and Don Henry, all here as part of the Tin Pan South Festival, sponsored by the Nashville Songwriters Association International, an organization dedicated to defending the rights of songwriters. I'm Ken Paulson. I hope you can join us again next week for Speaking Freely.
I know you believe in miracles and that this love will come back around. Yet I know you believe the grass is growing across this winter to the south of this town. And I know your kiss is sweeter than the dust that this love has become. And I know your path is clearer. Shed of me out there on your own. I don't intend to sound ungrateful. You given love when I had none. My feet have tread upon that road you're on, and I know it is not my way home. And I know it is not my way home. I know it is not my way home. You know this love has left us, so don't count the years. It took a long time to kill. Yet I know you will find a place for memories. You will be out there running, I will be here to be still. I don't intend to sound ungrateful. You gave me love when I had none. My feet have tread upon that road you're on, and I know it is not my way home. And I know it is not my way home. I know it is not my way home. And I know it is not my way home. I know it is not my way home. And I know